Yeah, Patrick Findaro here, co-founder at Vetted Biz. Excited to have on Jon Ostenson. He's a franchise consultant. He was a franchise executive at a pretty sizable brand. Jon, awesome to have you on today.
Yeah, Patrick, appreciate you having me. Looking forward to our conversation. We were having a great conversation prior to hitting record here, and we're diving in deeper.
So, Jon, tell us how you got into franchising.
Yeah, I stumbled into it. I like so many of your listeners, had spent most of my career in the corporate world and had a good run, but had that itch to do something a little bit different. And so left the public company world just 6 years ago, so not too long back, and came in and had the opportunity to lead the Shelf Genie franchise organization, supporting our owners across North America day to day. And for me, it was an eye-opening experience in this world that I've now dubbed non-food franchising. But ended up partnering with the founder, Alan Young. We spun off. We've invested in franchises ourselves, as well as with other partners. And for the most part, have good people, running those businesses for us, and allows me to spend most of my time helping others do the same now, playing matchmaker.
I like that you do what you preach, because like a lot of people in the franchise space, like they're selling opportunities, but they're not investing. They're putting their capital elsewhere, and they're not actually doing what they're preaching. Maybe just tell me a little bit about the investments you've currently done with your partner and how that's structured, like finding the day-to-day operator and everything.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the niche, again, Shelf Genie is custom pull-out shelving for kitchens and pantries, property services. That's the space that I've got some background in and kind of understand a little bit more, and just like some of the mechanics behind it. So, I've invested in pool cleaning, home cleaning, carpet cleaning, had a mosquito business for a little while, all under different franchise brands. The one that I'm probably most excited about right now is called the Driveway Company, and it's a niche player out there, but it's got a great name, the Driveway Company, and we've got that, and Soft Rock, which is kind of a sister brand to it. And lots of lessons learned. It's not like we figured everything out day one, but it comes down to having good people, good partnerships, good agreements up front. What we found is there's so many folks out there that love the idea of stepping in or running a business. At the same time, you have a lot of people with capital on the sidelines. And so trying to marry these two has kind of been, a lot of beta testing on our part. But no, it's worked really well. The guy that runs the Driveway Company for us, 27 years old. He was a CPA, no background in concrete. And, it was tired of, living in a cubicle 5 days a week over 5 years. And so anyway, he's jumped out there and really just done a great job growing the business. And we've acquired other franchise locations since then, kind of given them an exit, allowed us to expand our footprint. And so it's been fun. We've done everything from sponsoring a NASCAR and wrapping it with the Driveway Company to just having team lunches every month, just having a good time with it. But yeah, it comes down to having good partners and then good alignment with that key manager that's running the day-to-day, making sure the better the business does, the better they do, the better you do, and just aligning your interests.
And how did you find that manager?
Yeah, we kind of lucked into this one. So, he was the husband of a lady that was working with one of our business partners. So we lucked into that one. But a lot of people don't have that situation or don't have that cousin that's ready to jump from the military into running a business. And so that, I'd say, for our clients, that's probably what makes them the most nervous. And we recently partnered with a national recruiting firm that now helps our clients find that general manager. And, there's a small investment behind it, but they do a good job of doing the seeking out and the vetting and the interviewing and background checks, and then
even if you're paying 10 or 20K, if you're able to get another 100K of profit over like a year or two, it pays for itself.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, it's not that much, but it is, I guess you throw it in with all the other investments you're making at the start of a business.
It's an upfront commitment that a lot of people aren't maybe willing to take. But like part of that, you said you stumbled into it, but you're probably putting yourself out there. Like you have a very big LinkedIn presence. People know you, I'm sure, in your community that you're a franchise investor, franchise consultant, former executive of franchise brands. So you stumbled into it, but like if you weren't making yourself, if people in your community and in your network didn't know that was a possibility, then like probably it wouldn't have been that easy to find that person that was one or two, connections off.
Absolutely. No, I definitely make it known out there. We stay active on social media. We just had our book come out this morning, which I'm really excited about, which I'm happy to share a copy with any of your listeners. if you come out to FranBridgeConsulting.com, we'll get a free copy to you. But it's called non-food franchising. So no, we do a pretty good job of letting it be known out there, and we've always networked well. My thought is activity breeds activity. The more active you are, the better things happen. And so oftentimes in my career, and this is just a good reminder to everyone, I'll be analyzing option A or option B, and then because you've been active along the way, option C comes out of left field and surprises you. So, it pays to stay active, which I know you and your brother are very active yourself.
Definitely. Yeah. And I think a lot of what we do is be hyper transparent, even if it's with competitors, because usually there's some synergy to be had, and they do something better than we do. So there could be some immediate opportunity right away or down the line. I think a lot of people get afraid of like, oh, I don't know if this person should know, but the net positive usually is well worth it. And I even know a franchisor that acquired, which was a competitor. And if he wasn't so open, he wouldn't have known that they were in a situation that they wanted to sell, and it made a lot of sense for everyone. But if they didn't have that initial conversation, then it would never have transpired.
100% no. And I love what you and your brother are doing and the way that you're helping so many out there, really across franchising. I know you guys don't toot your own horn enough, but a really cool. And you've got a book coming out yourself, don't you?
Definitely. Yeah. So it's funny, an attorney that I was on his podcast inspired me, and he's like, Patrick, like you should be an author. You have all this information, and like it would be cool if I could be like author Patrick Findaro on the podcast. I should have done that for you actually as a nice intro. But how to buy a franchise in 12 weeks, employee and entrepreneur in 12 weeks. So super pumped with that. Released in a month. Well, depending on when this is released, it'll probably be just a couple days after December 15th. So very excited on that. And it wasn't that difficult because I've done so many interviews and had it transcribed and have a nice team of employees and my father that helped out on the structuring and editing. But more on you. So non-food franchise, it makes intuitive sense as over half of franchises are not food related. What inspired you to write the book and spread all this knowledge that you've accumulated over the years?
Yeah, no, of the 4,000 franchise brands in the US, we always have new ones coming online. Like you said, more than half are in the non-food space. And I'd say non-food, non-lodging. I really go deep in areas like property services and health and wellness and automotive and kids, pets, aging population, all the things that people are willing to spend on regardless of what economic conditions we're in, and so I just continue to hear from my clients. And I think food's a little bit of a different animal. Granted, we need people getting involved in food. That's just not my specialty. And I'd rather, share what I know. And so, and my humble belief is there are easier ways to make money, whether it be the capital expenses or the operating hours or the employees. I'm happy to go down that path. But, I'd say probably 95% of my clients are interested in these other industries, oftentimes in non-sexy, cash flowing, understandable businesses, from insulation to gutters to dumpsters to, I was talking with a client this morning. We work with a lot of doctors, a lot of lawyers, and a lot of professionals or existing business owners that are looking to expand their portfolio. And, they've got zero background in some of these areas, but then they step in, they love concrete paving, these businesses that are cash flowing that. So I think, with the impetus behind the book was, the educating side. I mean, I do some speaking and, kind of getting the word out there, but the book, is a way to reach the masses of, here's other opportunities. I think there's a lot of cash on the sidelines, a lot of people wanting to get in the game. They don't know what that looks like. They haven't thought about franchising because they associate franchising with food. And so I just have so many people reach out and say, we wanted to talk with you because you specialize in non-food franchising. Like they're using that goofy sounding term, non-food franchising. So really the book is soup to nuts. It's everything from, finding the right opportunity to whether franchising is right for you. We compare it versus startups, compare it versus entrepreneurship through acquisition, which is, the whole resale side of the business. Financials, how does the funding side work? How does the item 19 work? The whole legal piece. And then we talk about strategies too, whether it be, your first venture or building out that portfolio. We get into case studies of clients of ours that have, maybe had businesses that are non-franchised, and they step into, hey, for this next go round, let's add in a business that is franchised. And then I've got clients that have stuck with franchising all the way through. And in some cases, as they build out this portfolio, they love the fact that these businesses complement each other. Maybe it's sharing marketing on the front end and customer bases and resources on the back end, or maybe they serve to diversify. So again, we share a lot of of case studies in the book, helping people understand how it all works.
Very cool. I look forward to reading it.
Appreciate it. We'll definitely get a copy to you.
I read a ton of franchise books before writing my book, and I was surprised the lack of people going into numbers and like citing actual franchise examples. And a lot of it, and I think part of people buy franchises based on emotions. And I think both of us are trying to change that, where it's like, this is like your life. This is a financial decision, and you're going to have to stick with it for some years. So I'm very excited to read your book and like learn from you and how you convey the message on basically helping people's financial future and their lifestyle.
Yeah, I know that you're seeing this too. I call it franchising as an asset class, and it's not going to be the only thing you invest in, but in addition to, hopefully you don't have too much in crypto currently, but, in addition to, the public equities and maybe some private investments, some real estate. And frankly, there are only so many good real estate deals to be had out there right now. What are those other ways to put capital to work? And I think a lot of people want to get into business ownership. They don't know how. Just like you guys, you do a great job leading people down that path.
Well, I'm sure too, like you have some clients that them and their spouse are making $300K, $400K, $500K, and there can be some serious tax savings if they have an operating business and they're not just receiving a W-2 paycheck.
I call it a trifecta. You get the cash flow going, you're building an asset with an exit value, but then there's also that third piece that you mentioned of being able to write off expenses. And it's one of the few areas the government's still supporting us from a tax policy standpoint would be, small business ownership and just some of the benefits that go with it.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways to mitigate your tax bill, I guess, on the upfront part on the depreciation, and then on the ongoing side on the expenses.
Yeah. And if it's a CapEx heavy business, be able to accelerate the depreciation on the equipment or, heaven forbid, but maybe you have an operating loss that first year, which is a very real possibility, and be able to write that off. And I've been in that boat. We've had to write off some losses before, but you kind of grind and set it up for the long term.
And then so we've compared a lot like the initial investment to the resale value, and we're going to be putting that metric out on Vetted Biz for thousands of franchises. And a lot of the food concepts, especially, the resale value is less than the initial investment. So like a Subway restaurant, it's $350K to open, their midpoint investment, and they're being sold for like $150, $200. And I can imagine the type of businesses your clients are investing in. It's more, inverted, or, there should be a 3x return in year 5 or year 7.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. I think it does vary within food, but I think in property services, I oftentimes guide clients that exit multiple is somewhere between 0.75 and 1.25 of sales, which translates, to your point, to a 3 to 4 EBITDA multiple. And there are different factors there. I think the larger the business is, it also commands a higher multiple, and it just ends up on more people's radar. If it's a recurring revenue type business, a strong franchisor, opportunity to scale, buy up additional territories. I think all those go into that price. It's interesting. There was a study done by the Riker School of Business a couple of years ago where they looked at 2,000 transactions over a 10-year period and compared within like-kind industries, both franchised and non-franchised businesses, upon their exits. And food was one of the ones they looked at. But what they found was, on average, franchise businesses traded at a multiple 1.5 times non-franchise. And so really fascinating. I'm happy to share that with you after the show. But
please do.
Resellers, those that are looking to buy resales oftentimes do see that value, because we both know if you step into a business and it's not a franchise and you're buying a resale, it's great that, there may be some awareness in the market.
Yeah, but the guy was like probably paying people in cash. At least if you're buying a business down in Florida, under a 500K, under $1 million, like, they're violating IRS tax law, and they're violating labor law, maybe 80-90% of the time.
Yeah. The books are never, how do you define owner's discretionary? And then, you don't know if key employees might leave the next day. And then that becomes a ripple effect. If they leave, then they leave. And all of a sudden you're there holding the bag. And granted, that's not the case in every situation, but it is a risk you incur for what you see as a non-risky purchase. versus a new startup. And so I think, you also could have customer attrition that, they never let you onto at the time of the sale either. And so
it seems, especially if it's your first time around, like it's generally less capital and there's more runway to make mistakes, like with starting a new franchise compared to like buying an existing business, buying an existing franchise where it could be double, triple the cost. And if you're not on point, you can have like serious issues and start bleeding cash.
100%. No, you and I are aligned on that. And there are exceptions to every rule, but I think as a general rule of thumb, that's accurate.
And tell me a little bit about the doctors, because I have a lot of doctor buddies here in Miami and they ask me about franchises and I've been hesitant because I know they can do a per diem and get $2,000 cash. So if they have a manager turnover, then they're going to have to be working crazy hours and they're not going to stay focused on what gives them that yearly salary of say $500K. How do you handle that with your type of clients that are making, say, over $300K, where they need to protect their hours? How do you deal with those type of clients? Because you have had success, and I think it's a pretty difficult thing to navigate, where like not just any franchise consultant can like really plug in and help advise someone like that.
Yeah, I think it really comes down to having the right franchise system. And just like any industry, I mean, we have a lot of doctors get excited about the idea on paper. And then once reality hits, they say, wait a minute, there is too much risk, to my hours, because I have very few doctors that are wanting to walk away from their core business. They put in too much training all these years. I mean, most of them are not looking to do that. I did have a Wall Street attorney jump ship last year to run a gutter business. So, I mean, you do see
that's
that,
awesome.
But I'd say in the medical field, I've not seen people leaving. And we work with dentists, we work with orthopedic surgeons, we've got all sorts of physicians. But we did a deal last week up in Raleigh, and it's a pet-related franchise, but it's one that's extremely hands-off. And so two doctors went in together. We've got two clients just up the road from you down in the West Palm area, buying a floor coating business. They close on it next week. And again, they're partnered up, so that defers the.
So how does that work? Like, are you giving equity to the day-to-day manager? Do you have profit share? What have you seen as like the best model for someone that has significant net worth and significant income, and they don't want to? They're trying to be as less hands-on as possible.
Yeah. So a couple of thoughts around that. So I look at our driveway business here. We pay a base salary. I think it's $70,000, give or take, to this 27-year-old, and then we provide a quarterly bonus program that aligns both to the top line of the business as well as the bottom line. So it aligns our incentives in him growing the business top line and expanding, but then also, managing the business well from a cash flow standpoint. So the better the business does, the better he does, the better we do. He came to us about a month or two into running the business, said, hey, I like what we're building. Can I buy into some equity? We allowed him to buy into 20% equity.
20%.
At a discounted rate. And there's a clawback provision. If he leaves in the first year, then he loses the equity. If he leaves between 12 and 24 months, he loses half of that. And then a fully vested 24 months. That's an approach I like. Is what I found is a lot of people want equity. A lot of young folks do. It sounds good, but they don't.
Well,
really
also in
want
this whole
equity.
startup world, like I have a lot of friends that went to San Fran, and like one of them's been at multiple startups where he got equity, wasn't worse, and it didn't mean anything. Well, but people want that equity, even though it's just people are dying for it, and it might not be the right decision for them, but that's what they want, I guess.
I think the core is having a good base salary that they can live off of, so they're not totally live or die by that. But then also having that upside potential, whether it be through profit sharing or phantom stock. There's a lot of ways to deploy this. It is interesting too. People want equity, they want the upside, they want that profit sharing. They don't want downside. If you have to write, say there was a lawsuit, they don't want to be a part of that. Say you have to put cash injections, capital calls. They don't want to be part of that. This is a very common part of partnerships, and it's not a pleasant thing. As long as people are communicating to me, hey, this is what's happening, but I don't want to get a surprise. Hey, you need to inject this by this date. 100%. Now, one case study, a client of ours, Nathan Bocock, who great guy, around 40 years old, same stage of life, over in Columbia, South Carolina. He's the largest franchisee of 2 Men in a Truck moving service. Operates in like 10 markets. So he and I do about a franchise deal together every year. That's just kind of our cadence. And he'll put a young guy from his church or his community over the business, kind of that mid-20s, avatar, if you will. And in his case, he gives them a lot of equity out of the gate. because he's already.
But there's also that trust factor. I hired one of our key employees. We hired, and she brought in another 8 people from her church. So it's like they're shared values. There's very close.
100%.
You're going to work through problems. You're not going to just quit the job. Like, you're going to work through it. And I think probably a lot of business partnerships go wrong because one of the partners isn't willing to put in the time and effort to work through it. The little trough.
And he'll give them close to 50% equity. You know, and I don't think he minds me sharing that. He coaches some of our clients actually, you know, in how to go about it. But he's all about giving the equity and then saying, hey, I'd rather have a small piece of a big nut than a big piece of a small nut. Go make us proud. In every case, every deal that we've done, he's come back and bought additional locations within the first year. So I think that's a testimony to his methodology as well.
There's one franchise system I won't name, but it's in the fast food space where growing, hit up 500 units. One of the multi-unit operators just stopped opening more and everyone else froze and the system has just been like that. So, I mean, that's the biggest testament that he's having success and that the franchise system is having success is where people are opening more territories that they're not obligated to open, where maybe someone bought 3 territories to start and they're going to push through and open those 3. But if they bought 1 or bought 2 and they keep opening, people have a lot of choices and a lot of opportunities. And the fact that they're putting their money into that opportunity again, I mean, it's a huge
that's true validation right there. Right.
Yeah. And what do you recommend for prospective franchisees? We have a lot that are listening on our podcast, YouTube channel. How many current franchisees should they validate the information for? Should they talk to former franchisees? How do you approach that process with your clients?
Yeah, I let the franchisor take a little bit of the leadership there because they know the situations that are most like my clients. What are those comparable markets, similar backgrounds? Are they, I'll have clients that are semi-absentee and franchisor will introduce them to a couple of owner operators. I'm like, so I'll have to intervene sometimes. Say, no, give them some semi-absentee. But I had a client the other day. He was at a discovery day this past week for a business. He's out in New York, and I introduced him to Nathan. He wanted to talk to someone outside the franchise system. There was another objective and so I pay Nathan to get on these calls, and I pay him a healthy sum, but it's worth every penny. And so he got on a call with Nathan, and Nathan said, "Hey, here are the things to think about: good, bad, ugly. Here's how I would evaluate it." So I think sometimes you do need to bring in outside perspectives as well. Obviously, working with a good franchise attorney, they're going to point some things out and raise some questions. And so the goal is really through the process, let's give them as much information, which you guys are great about doing this as well. Make it as eyes wide open, for that final decision to make sure that you're getting into something that's going to make sense. And I mean, my favorite clients are those that are referred by past happy clients of mine, and so, my client success is everything to me. I mean, that's where I find my validation in what I do.
That makes sense. And for the structuring, I imagine, are they mostly leaning on you, or does the franchisor also, suggest different models or even suggest potential employees to work with your clients that aren't able to dedicate day-to-day hours to the business?
Yeah, I'd say the more the onus on finding that manager or key employee is on the client side than the franchisor side. But what the franchisor is willing to do is train those key employees. So as long as my client will pay for the cost of a flight and hotel to send them off for a week of training, that's what we did with our driveway guy. We sent him out to Waco, had him trained up, and and he came back, fully prepared. And the nice thing, and you talk about this on your podcast oftentimes, but with the franchisor, versus just a startup, the running a semi-absentee, the burden doesn't totally fall on you as the owner. You do have that franchisor who's your business partner. That manager of yours can go to the franchisor for technical questions, for support. They're going to keep them marching in the right direction. So even though you're involved in managing the manager, if you've got a good person in the role, they're going to be able to get a lot of that support from the franchisor.
That's a great point, because there's a lot of service-based concepts where the franchisor is handling sales, marketing, and then the day-to-day operator or the franchisee is more on the client service and the operations. So if it's client service or operations, it gets kicked up to you as the majority owner in the franchise. But if it's sales, marketing, or issue with the technology that's used for the business, they're going to the franchisor. They're not bothering you as the business owner.
No, totally. And I encourage our clients, what are those things that you enjoy doing? What are you good at? where in the limited time that you have, where should you lean in? Is it getting involved in the Chamber of Commerce? Is it, putting the brand and behind your son's, Little League baseball team and sponsoring them? What is it? And I'd say oftentimes it's that community involvement, getting the word out there, the grassroots efforts, lowers the cost of customer acquisition, for the business, if you get referrals instead of just, relying on digital marketing, let's say. So I'd say that's oftentimes where we see them leaning in, but then also just, coaching and holding their manager accountable and having those weekly touch bases and, maybe monthly team meetings where you take them out to dinner and you build that culture and everything else. So when we start talking about that, that's what gets people excited. That's where they want to put their time.
That makes sense. Yeah, where they can have the biggest impact at the end of the day. And usually that they also enjoy it to some extent.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, you probably hear this all the time from your clients, your current candidates you're helping, or your former investors, like the one that keeps going to you every year. But, how do you see the upcoming recession or the current recession that we're in? Are there any specific industries that you might suggest clients focused on?
Yeah, I'd say it's not just what I think, but I take a lot of input from different sources. I listen to a lot of real estate professionals, a lot of economists, a lot of talking heads too, just to get diverging views on things. So, I think ultimately that people thrive in times of recession and they struggle in times of recession in the same way they do in any other economic climate. And I think that for some people, they see it as an opportunity to go out and gain market share. And if others are cutting back on their marketing, maybe we lean in heavy. So I think so much of it comes down to, what's in your head and how you approach things. I had a client recently that was buying a business, and he had 3 other companies in this area come out and give quotes just to, from the same industry to kind of get a feel for, is this an industry I want to be in? And he said, there's only one of the 3 that would really be a formidable competitor to him in the market. He's like, but I don't know about that one. I said, well, go out and poach some of their best people right before your launch. And he's like, I like that idea. And so I think there are ways to reframe things. We are in a recession, whether or not people agree with it. And I do think as a business owner, again, you have more leeway. Would you rather be flying the airplane or you're riding passenger, even if you're in business class? I like to have control. I like to be able to set my own prices. I like to be able to, maneuver, be flexible, get lean when need to. So I think for a lot of the right people, regardless of industry, they're going to do well. I do think that, I think fitness is really competitive right now. I think a lot of overlap is taking place. I think what are those discretionary places that people can cut back on versus others?
So you were saying fitness? Did I hear that as one that maybe to avoid? Or
yeah, but regardless of the economy, people will spend on their homes, their health, their kids, their pets, and their aging parents. Businesses that cater to those that do a kick-butt job are going to do well in times of recession. And there's going to be an opportunity to lean in and gain market share. This goes back to when I was in the corporate world 12 years ago, where there was a huge cotton crisis, and that impacted the business that I was leading. And what did we do? We didn't raise prices to the same degree everyone else did, but we raised them half as much. And we gained tons of market share that made us stronger coming out of the recession. So
that was at Carter's?
Yeah.
Super strong brand.
Carter's, Oshkosh B'gosh, children's apparel. Yeah. Talk about a career pivot from there to Shelf Genie.
Well, no, I'm sure that's clothing in general is like just a tough business to be in. So I'm sure you prefer the service space that you're investing and advising your clients on.
I do. No, it was good for a season and a very long season. We had some big successes during that time, but lots of learnings that I was able to take with me, and thankful to not be a part of a big corporation anymore.
And what about the financing side? Like, what do you recommend clients do? Do you work with like an outside loan broker or someone that helps with 401k rollovers? How do you work with clients on that?
Yeah. I'd say about a third of our clients will use cash to fund the investment. Probably a third will use SBA loans. And we do work with FranFund is our primary lending partner there. They work with franchise-friendly lenders as an intermediary. But we don't discriminate. We work with other lending partners as well. And there's some alternative ones that we have in our back pocket. Franchise, and then I'd say a third of our clients will use, like you said, the retirement self-directed approach, which is called the Rob's plan. Again, we've got some providers that provide that. We also see people tapping into home equity right now using HELOCs. Those rates can be a little bit lower than some others, and you can access it more like a credit line versus a lump sum. So there's some benefits. And another one, Patrick, that I don't know if you've seen as often, but a portfolio loan. I'm a big fan of this. If you have assets in a non-retirement brokerage account, being able to borrow against those, that's probably going to be your best rate of interest rate. It seems like
it's very, very low rates despite the current environment compared to other financing mechanisms.
Yeah, I mean, I've got one of those. I think I'm paying 7% now. I was paying 2% a year ago, but then I'll either invest those in franchises or in anything that's not a public security. So I do a lot of real estate lending just personally at 12, 13% rates.
So that's a nice carry trade.
It's called arbitrage. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
Well, Jon, I've enjoyed today's conversation. We've gone through a lot. Is there any closing thoughts for whether it's prospective franchisee? We have a lot of franchisors that listen as well, current franchisees. Any closing thoughts that you would like to convey?
Yeah, I would just say, from where we sit, I mean, we've never been busier. I think the landscape is extremely active right now. Q4 is always a big time. But I'm just encouraged. I'm encouraged for our country as well, despite all the political tensions out there. Entrepreneurship's alive and well, and we see the activity on the ground. And I love people's mindset and what they're looking to build. So I'm encouraged, just broadly speaking. And if we can ever help in any way, again, our book just came out. So excited about non-food franchising. If you come out to our website, FranBridgeConsulting.com, would love to get a free copy to all of your listeners. And again, if there's anything we can do to help, I'm more than happy to. And I really appreciate you having us on the show, Patrick. Really enjoyed the conversation.
Oh, Jon, it was great. We'll be sure to include the link to your book as well as a link to your website. And again, anyone that wants to get in contact with Jon, feel free in the show notes to reach out. Jon, this was great. I learned a lot, especially on the structuring side. If I was going to invest in a certain business, some different avenues to look at, as well as for my friends and my network that they don't want to work day to day, that franchising can be a good option if it's done right with the right business model, and then done with ideally someone that's close to you or potentially working with a recruiting company and just making sure it's structured well.
Absolutely. No, you hit it on the head. I love the show, love what you're doing for everyone, Patrick. So keep up the good work.
Thanks, Jon. Appreciate it.